Arsenal's pre-season has come to a close after having suffered just one loss in open-door friendlies, and that came against Atletico Madrid in penalties. The Gunners successfully dispatched Chelsea on penalties, PSG and, most recently, Lazio. All of the matches showcased strengths and weaknesses, but mostly strengths, and we should all be damn excited to see the club in real action against a real opponent, stressful as it is going to be. The pressure will be on Unai Emery to put his best foot forward, but playing against Manchester City, the expectations are a bit lowered, I'd have to say. Which means it's the perfect time to pull one over on the defending champs. It all starts with a good starting 11. Now, predicting Arsene Wenger's starting size was hard enough, but predicting Unai Emery's first ever starting 11 after a summer of experimentation is another level up. Still, using the context clues of the pre-season, let's do our best to dive into this starting 11 and what Emery's first ever may look like. We will start at the back. Keeper. You don't spend big bucks on a keeper if you don't plan on using him. The purpose in buying Bernd Leno was to start Bernd Leno. And while Petr Cech has done a fantastic job reasserting himself, he had all of last year to solidify the job and he failed. Leno should get the start between the posts, even with the pressure turned up to 11, because you can't just baby the guy and hope he can inch his way in. Put the trust in him and he should pay the club back with a solid performance. The only reason why Cech could start is if Emery is so worried about the pressure that he wants to try to hide from it and put in the more experienced guy, but that's a very timid way to go about this, and Emery does not seem like a timid guy at all. Next up, let's talk centre-back pairing. Page 2, photo by Julian Finney, Getty Images. Just about every positional battle is going to be a tough one to call going into this matchup and, ideally, for the rest of the season too. But centre-back may be the most fluctuating of them all, as there are so many options and so many players prone to mistakes. More from Payne and the Arsenal switch is the purpose of internal competition, however, and that's what we have going on here. Let the bad ones weed themselves out, correct their form and get back into the mix, like a carousel of defensive competency. Sokratis is going to start. Much like Leno, I don't see why you buy the guy if you don't intend to throw him out there. Plus, as a believer in baptisms by fire, I love to see players tossed into the fray for a high-stress match. Let them sink or swim. Who starts next to Sokratis was supposed to be a tougher decision, but it's hard to imagine it not being Shkodran Mustafi, who has had a near-perfect pre-season. I expected Callum Chambers to be more in the mix. As of writing, the reported loan move to Fulham had yet to be made official, but Emery seemed less inclined to get him starting minutes, so it's looking like Mustafi and Sokratis will be the way to go. Next up, let's round off the defense with some fullbacks. Page 3, photo by Catherine Iville, Getty Images. Here we have one of the easiest positions to call. However, it would have been made a heck of a lot easier if it weren't for the sudden, lengthy injury to Sead Kolasinac, who I think we were all looking forward to seeing back in peak form. On the right side, even with the addition of Stefan Lichtsteiner, who I really hope to see out there soon, it has to fall to Hector Bellerin, who brings the electricity that Unai Emery loves to have in his side. It will be the Spaniard's job to lose throughout the season, though, so if he doesn't keep a firm grip on it, don't be surprised to see Lichtsteiner sneak in there. Check out the latest episode of the Payne and the Arsenal podcast here, on the left side. It's really a war of attrition. With Kolasinac out and Nacho Monreal also short on fitness, it has to fall to Ainsley Maitland-Niles, because he has the athleticism to keep pace with the intense Manchester City attack. That isn't a lot of experience on the flanks, and not the best of defensive prowess either, but the speed that the two bring might be the best solution to all of this anyway. It's not like City have the best defense either. Let's talk midfield next. Page 4, photo by Clive Brunskill, Getty Images. This position will obviously depend on just how Unai Emery decides to line up. He has utilized both the 4-3-3 and the 4-4-2 during the preseason, but primarily, he has gone with the 4-3-3. That may not mean anything though. Maybe he knows he wants the 4-4-2 and has been testing out the 4-3-3, which is actually what I expect him to do. I think he will employ the 4-4-2 to better utilize his strengths and to better keep pace with Manchester City's outright attack. It is a gamble, but Emery strikes me as the gambling sort. More from pain in the arsenal, meaning that the midfield four will be anchored around two deep midfielders while two attacking midfielders will be sorted out wide. For the deep midfielders, I would expect to see Granit Xhaka and Aaron Ramsey. Although this is absolutely the part where I have the most hesitation, simply because Matteo Guendouzi has been so good and Lucas Torreira is supposed to be the big-time solution. Still, with Torreira lacking fitness and Guendouzi lacking experience, I would imagine that Emery wants to err on the side of two experienced guys who fill very specific roles. If Torreira had a longer time with the club, this would be a different story. But he didn't, so it isn't. Again, I hesitate the most with this portion, but that's my logic. Which would mean, rather obviously, that Mesut Özil and Henrik Mkhitaryan will be starting out wide. We really should be employing both of them as often as possible. Last but the opposite of the least, the attack. Page 5, photo by Sean Botterill, Getty Images. I just have trouble wrapping my head around Emery continuing with using Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang as a winger, like Arsene Wenger did. While it certainly works, and should be reverted to if all else fails, his best position, and the position he most wants to play, is as an actual striker. The preseason was about experimentation. I have to believe that Emery knew what he wanted out of his team from the moment he signed on. He said he wants to maximize the talent that he has, so other than a few key adjustments, not much else figures to change, except doing exactly as he said, maximizing what he has. Putting Aubameyang up front next to Alexander Lacazette is a dream that Gunners around the world have been having nightly for years. Not those two, specifically, but any two. Emery has to be aware of that. This formation, with this personnel, is the best way to put his best foot forward. Let the best players play in their best possible position, and what complaints can we actually have if things don't work out? Next, Arsenal vs Lazio, 3 players who impressed. There were a lot of broken things about the Wenger era, but the personnel was not it. Particularly not at the end.